So welcome again to the second video in our mini masterclass series to help you heal from divorce and look at getting your mojo back. I am Annie Kendall, founder of Hello Mojo, and today I am joined by Adele Theron from Naked.Divorce, who is the creator of the Hello Emotional Freedom program. She's the founder of Naked.Divorce, obviously, the #1 divorce coach in the UK, with a number of other accolades to her name. Adele, thank you for joining us again today.
It's really nice to be here, Annie.
Oh, great. Now we've in our last video, we talked about grounding yourself and getting ready for the healing experience. Today, we are going to be talking about a number of tools and techniques that people can, use from today to help them look at starting to move into that healing process. So no matter whether you're going through a breakup or going through a divorce or are well and truly out the other side, but you're not over it yet, there is a common grievance that people often have. They feel like life has become erratic and they're all over the place, and they just don't feel like themselves anymore. So Adele, in the Hello Emotional Freedom program, you talk about that in order to start the process of healing, it's crucial that people first embrace a number of key behaviors, or you call them ethics, to ground themselves, to make things less complicated, and to reduce as much noise as possible so that they can move into that healing process. There's 7 ethics that you talk about. I'll quickly run through them, but today I'd like to talk about 4 particularly. So #1 is being self-expressed. #2 is avoiding short-term emotion avoidance tactics. #3 is establishing a grounded routine. #4 is sleeping on any drastic changes that you wish to make in your life, which I highly recommend. #5, saying no. #6 is the cause versus effect. And #7 is focusing on yourself versus focusing on your ex. So today, let's touch on 4 of these to help people really get a head start in this healing journey. I'd like to talk about the very first ethic, so being self-expressed. Unresolved grief during and following a divorce, it consumes a tremendous amount of your energy. Putting on a brave face, pretending that you're fine when you're really not, it's absolutely exhausting. So Adele, how do people, and we'll just keep the answers short because I'd like to cover 4 of these, how do people know when they're not being completely honest with themselves about the state of their recovery, and what do people find themselves doing or, saying to mask this reality, and what should they really be doing?
I think a lot of it is attributed to how much shame they're feeling as well. Keep in mind that divorce, as we said in the first video, is a shame-based trauma. So people often feel very uncomfortable with the fact that they're going through this divorce in the first place. And maybe this divorce caught other people around them by surprise. So that will make them, a lot of people that we work with, they don't want to talk to anyone about what they're going through. And they're very quiet about what they're going through because they're feeling sad and bad and ashamed and weird about what's happening. Now, the thing is, firstly, that's a very isolating place to be. And I think you need to remember that, statistically, in most countries that we live in, between 42 and 56% of people have been through at least one divorce. So whatever perception you have about yourself being divorced is probably incorrect. There's probably a lot more people that can understand that relationships kind of don't always work out. So I think isolating yourself in that kind of horrible shame spiral it has very negative consequences to your healing. So being self-expressed is really important. Like, actually, you don't need to stand on a corner and talk to everybody about it, but pick a few trusted people that you can actually talk to about how you're feeling and get self-expressed. Don't go through the journey in total isolation, where you are, vilifying yourself, going into a whole kind of spiral, I think that's really negative. So I think it's important to talk to some trusted people about how you're doing.
And obviously they can, some of those people will be in your journey for a little while, some will be there for a long time, but they are a good sort of board to bounce things off as well. I think
Absolutely.
if you can find that one person who really puts it to you every now and then and challenges your thoughts and feelings, that's also a good way to get that feedback about your reality and where things are headed. Yeah. Okay, awesome.
I think just another point to make, it's sometimes good not to always pick your family and your close friends. Sometimes the people that are the best to be self-expressed with, people that have been through the journey themselves.
Mm,
So what people find when they go through divorce, they make some new connections that they didn't know they were going to make. It's because they're resonating with people that they might not have resonated with before. So be
mm.
open to that.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so the second one I would like to talk about is the short-term emotion avoidance tactics. I know I had plenty of these. So almost everyone that's been through a breakup in before or a divorce at some time has engaged in activities that are a way for them to avoid feeling pain or numb their pain or just take away their pain, but in the short term at least. Can you tell us some more about these short-term avoidance tactics, what they are, and what impacts, if any, they have on our healing process?
So, as human beings, it's very common for us to struggle to tolerate distress for too long. So, as our natural inclination when we are in a distressed position is to find an easy fix to take it away. And we usually find these kind of short-term gratification things. But the problem with a short-term emotion avoidance tactic is when we have too many of these in place that are firstly not good for us. They don't actually ground us or anything. They just remove emotion. And we have too many of these in place, it can actually help us avoid dealing with what we need to deal with. It can assist us in completely delaying the healing process and to stay stuck. So examples of STEATs or short-term emotion avoidance tactics is, drinking, drinking lots of alcohol where we're just numbing our emotions, but over time you're just staying frozen in that position that you're in. Lots and lots of retail therapy where you end up getting huge credit card bills and you're not really helping yourself because you didn't need 14 pairs of red shoes. It's things that are not good for us, but it numbs the pain a little bit.
Mm,
What you want to do instead of a short-term emotion avoidance tactic is to install what we call a grounded routine. So a grounded routine is very different. These are routines that we follow in the daily checklist of a Hello Emotional Freedom that are more kind of good for us. They make us feel better. They take away the pain, but in healthy ways. So things like baking bread or gardening or setting the table, cooking a meal from beginning to end. These are healthier, kind of more grounded
mm.
approaches to follow than just straight, let's do something to fix the pain right now that is ultimately not good for us.
And you probably find within that there's a lot of people that go out to try and replace what they had. So whether it's getting straight into online dating or, you know, for me, it was going out and there was a bit of guilt with my children. So it was like going and buying them everything that they needed to make me feel like I was better. So yeah, so there's lots of ways that I can think of that I used to try and avoid pain, 100%. So yeah, hopefully that gets
Yeah.
people thinking about some of their actions right now that they may be doing that they might need to just get back to a grounded routine and yeah, stabilize themselves for this healing journey.
And a lot of people use their children as short-term emotion avoidance tactics.
Mm.
They, following a divorce, they would get completely sucked into the lives of their children. And firstly, that's not good in terms of the avoidance of ultimately healing, but it's also not healthy for the children because the
Mm.
children feel this neediness and this pressure from their parents that, oh, I need to hug my mother for the 19th time today. Like, oh, it's too suffocating. Like, you can't use your kids or use their concerns and things as a way to kind of avoid healing.
Mm.
You got to watch that.
And it's quite difficult because when you're in the moment, like, you don't see a lot of these things. And I think that's where the program adds so much value, because it just continually throwing things in front of you and challenging, what you're
Yeah.
doing and your mindset at that point in time, to help you sort of move through, like, tackle each of these as you go, so that you're not sort of starting to veer off in the wrong direction. So that's awesome. Okay. The next one I'd like to talk about is the cause and effect. So, most people going through a separation and divorce confuse responsibility with blame. I clearly remember really being on the edge when it came to this in the program for me. I was sure that if I took responsibility for some of the things that led to my separation, then I would surely be to blame. Now I'm really clear that taking responsibility has absolutely nothing to do with blame. But I'm sure that there are many listeners out there that are struggling with this concept, just hearing it now. So, can you explain the difference between responsibility and blame? Can you explain the purpose of what we're doing in terms of having to define these? And the importance of taking responsibility for those things that you are responsible for, and how we can shift from feeling like we are the effect of life to that we are the cause of our life.
So, the way to look at this is basically that healing is synonymous with learning. If you actually want to get over what has happened, you need to take on board the learnings that you can absorb from the experience that you have been through. So, responsibility is actually your way of extracting the learnings of what had happened in your relationship. And you can looking at what you can be responsible for, what you can learn from what has happened. Now, it's important how you do that. And this is particularly hard when you have a really acrimonious divorce where perhaps your ex was, a cheater, and they, like in my instance, my ex cheated a lot and there was a lot of mess there. So, I can bathe in the deliciousness of, he's the cause of all this, I'm the innocent party, he's the one that went off and had all these affairs, like I've done nothing. The only thing I learned is to avoid people like him. you know that's actually shallow. That's not actually you truly embracing all the learnings to learn,
Mm.
such that you never make that mistake again in the future. So you've got to be really honest with yourself at this junction. If you're letting yourself get away with just the shallow level of healing, or learning, you're going to have shallow level of healing.
Mm.
So responsibility is, if I'm extracting the full learning out of that, I can go, you know what? I can see there were things I stepped over right from the get-go. We were not actually compatible right from the get-go.
Mm.
I could see that I could have done this, this, and this differently. I can see that, we stopped, communicating properly from this year onwards. He has needs he needed to get met. I can see that my actions contributed to all that happening. These are all the things that I will do differently moving forward. I didn't select very well. I didn't select a partner. I didn't check, does he want the, I didn't do my due diligence. So if you go to that level of learning, you are then in the place of being cause of what has happened. You're saying, I was in that relationship too. I need to look at what I can be responsible for so that I can move on and never make these
Mm.
mistakes again. When we are just a victim, we will stay stuck.
And it is
We will
very,
go, well, look, I'm innocent. You're the one that did everything. I'm just sitting here innocently. I didn't ask for this to happen. And
mm,
I'm just trying to move on. This is not going to help you truly move on.
no. And in all honesty, this was one of the biggest and most profound things of the journey for me, is where we focused on how to take responsibility for things. When you go from being so against a specific topic like that, to just embracing it and finding the learning in it, it's changes your world. Yeah, and I was able to move through that blame. But it is in the moment, it is so difficult to look beyond that last straw. But yeah, taking the layers off and just peeling everything back and really being open to the growth and learning in this experience will change everything for people. So the last,
Yeah. And when you can do that at such a deep level, you'll be baffled at the quality of partner that then enters your world. Because people that repeat the same mistakes over and over again and attract the same kind of person over and over again, if you look back at the way that they actually processed and healed from their divorce, they had shallow learning. They
absolutely.
never actually took full responsibility. They just got stuck in that position. So it's a perpetuating reality that they keep attracting.
And I hope people, if they do move through and end up doing the course, your program, I hope they think back at this moment and think that was their pivotal moment. This concept really changes so many people in this program. Okay, Adele, quickly, the last ethic that I'd like to talk about is focusing on yourself versus focusing on your ex. So throughout my separation and divorce, and for a long time thereafter, until I did your program, every time I felt like I was a few steps ahead of things, suddenly thoughts, I'd find myself thinking about my ex, not in a great way, about what he was doing, about who he was dating, about how far he'd gone in life, and I hadn't. And suddenly I'd be consumed by this past blame and hurt and frustration, and I'd find that I was suddenly a few steps back from where I thought I was going. Can you explain the concept to our listeners of targeted fixation and how people can train their minds to stop being preoccupied with thoughts of their ex and well after they've healed as well, right now and well after they've healed?
So target fixation is actually something they teach you in advanced driving courses. If you're driving a motorcycle or a car, you need to focus on where you want to be as opposed to following the vehicle that is right in front of you. If you follow the vehicle and fixate on what is right in front of you, you will more than likely crash into that vehicle. Your ability to get out of the situation is impaired. It's the same thing in life. If you really want to focus on moving on, you can't focus on moving on from your past if you're focusing on what your ex is doing in his new life all the time. If you continue stalking him on Facebook, checking the new person he's dating, checking like, oh, she wore this skirt and I hate that skirt, and all that obsessive ruminating and thinking, it's actually completely impairing your ability to move on. The healthiest thing you can do is actually make a total cut. And even if you're parenting together, I think you can have a conversation with your ex that just says, look, I'm doing a program right now, I need to not have any contact with you unless it's absolutely critical and about the kids. I need to take a complete break, I don't want to be in communication, and unfollow from all social media, don't check what they're doing. And the principle is DNI, do not indulge. It's an indulgence that we kind of drift into where we want to check everything and obsess about what they're doing. It's not helpful. It's not good for your healing and your life. So the deal is whatever you focus on is what expands. So if you want to focus on your healing, your future, and what you're up to, that's where you need to be heading. Because ultimately, the ultimate revenge and the ultimate, if you're upset about something that your ex has done, you want to get back at them, or the ultimate revenge is actually you just leading your best life. Not actually anything to do with what they're doing at all.
Yeah.
It's like you cracking on with your best life. So focusing on what your ex is doing, what they're all up to, it's not good for you. It's important to focus and expand on where you're going, what's next for you, how do I design what I'm up to, and do not indulge in that habit and addiction of checking what he's up to. Just an addiction.
Great. Well, that probably gives people a few really good tips on techniques and behaviors that they can enroll in now for themselves and move forward in their healing journeys. So, we've talked about grounding yourself for the journey, where now we've moved through a number of key behaviors that you need to, take on board to really start and move through this journey. And tomorrow, I'd like to talk to you about how we can set a vision for where we want to go, because you can start something, but if you don't know where you're going, you will end up in the wrong place. So that's what I'd like to talk to you about tomorrow. But Adele, thank you for your time today, and I look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow.
You're welcome.